hands. The faint hum of machines filled the silence, punctuated by the rhythmic beep of the monitor attached to the woman lying motionless on the bed. Emily's sobs were weak, barely audible over the machinery. Her bruised and swollen face was turned toward the window, as if to escape the weight of Adrian's gaze. He looked down at the report again, not because he needed to reread it, but because it was easier than looking at her. The words on the page were clinical, cold, blunt force trauma, multiple contusions, possible rib fracture, evidence of recent sexual activity. His stomach turned every time his eyes hit that last line. Emily whimpered softly, her voice cracked and pitiful. "I'm sorry, Adrian." He said nothing, his jaw tightening as he stared at the report. His mind wandered, searching for the thread of causality that had brought them here. How had it come to this? How had his quiet, carefully constructed life turned into this? The chaos, the drama, the wreckage. 10 years ago, Adrian never would have thought of himself as the kind of man who stepped into fights. Conflict wasn't his thing. He lived a quiet life, avoided drama, and minded his own business. But that night, everything changed. It started like any other evening. Adrian was walking home through the back streets of the city. Then he heard it. "Are you stupid or something? I told you to shut your damn mouth." The voice was sharp and filled with anger. Adrian paused, his footsteps slowing. The sound had come from an alley just ahead, poorly lit by a flickering street lamp. He couldn't see what was happening, but the edge in the man's voice made his chest tighten. Then a softer voice replied, shaking but defiant. "I didn't do anything wrong, Tony. You're overreacting." Adrian's heart quickened. His logical mind told him to keep walking, but his feet stayed rooted to the pavement, as if waiting for something to happen. Then it did. The crack of a slap echoed down the alley, sharp and unmistakable. Before Adrian could think, his body acted. His legs moved, propelling him toward the sound, his pulse thundering in his ears. When he turned the corner, he saw them. A tall, broad-shouldered man stood over a slender woman backed against a graffiti-covered wall. She had one hand to her cheek, where the bruise was already beginning to bloom. Her wide eyes flicked toward Adrian as he approached, but it was the man, Tony, who turned to face him, sneering. "You lost or something?" Tony said, his tone mocking. Adrian's body felt tense, coiled like a spring. He wasn't thinking. There was no time for that. "You want to play hero?" He cracked his knuckles and stepped forward, towering over Adrian. "You're gonna regret this." Tony lunged with a right roundhouse punch, the kind designed to overwhelm an opponent with sheer force. But Adrian